Let's see.
Seems hopeful that this is a solution. There are solutions that we can address so that the neighbors will hopefully more accepting of the daycare being there. Someone, Mr. Lasky,
That's me, sorry.
was looking into my living situations and wanting to expose it on a public request and not.
That's him. We could hear a conversation in the background. And it's 7 o'clock. We can start when you're ready.
Okay, ready to go?
All set.
All right. It is 7 o'clock, Wednesday, May 26th, for the Chelmsford Planning Board, pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GLC 3818, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. Welcome to the Planning Board meeting for Wednesday, May 26, 2021. This meeting is being televised by Chelmsford Telemedia. It's being conducted remotely. The call into the number meeting would be 929-205-6099. You can get all the information also off the website. First up, we have administrative review. We now go to Trammell Crow residential request for planning board. Vote to submit a request for state guidance, 255 Princeton Street, zoning eligibility determination. Is anyone here from the applicant?
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Melissa Robbins from Farrell and Robbins on behalf of Trammell Crow Residential.
Good evening.
Good evening. As the chairman has stated, we recently attended a joint board meeting where the development, this board actually and the Board of Selectmen met together to discuss some potential zoning options and timelines to develop the site. One of the tasks that came out of the site was for Evan and the developer to come up with some provisions and some ideas on how to deal with zoning. One of the questions that came up during this initial review was whether or not this housing choice zoning reform legislation, which is also known as the chapter 358 of the Acts of 2020 and 4 other names that I know of off the top of my head, have any effect on this parcel or zoning options out here. Let me just tell you that the biggest change, and if you want to scroll down a little bit, Colleen, they can see the meat of the legislation right in my letter, so I won't have to read it. One of the changes in the Zoning Act was it reduced the number of votes required to make zoning changes at town meeting for some provisions. It changed it from a 2/3 supermajority to a simple majority vote. As with any new Massachusetts legislation, it's unclear whether or not this legislation has any bearing whatsoever on this zoning or this parcel. However, DHCD has decided that they will give towns guidance on whether or not certain parcels or certain overlays may have an effect to this statute. The request is actually a simple online form with some drop-down questions. There's no binding regulation that comes out of it. It really just is an idea of whether or not this parcel could fit under this legislation and whether or not the zoning provisions, if this ever went to town meeting, could be a simple majority vote or a 2/3 supermajority vote. So what I would request the board do is take a vote actually for Evan to complete this online form. The reason I ask is because DHCD does not allow individual landowners or individual developers to make this request, even for guidance. The guidance must come through the planning board or the Board of Selectmen. As this is only a request for guidance, I would ask the planning board just to take a simple vote to allow Evan and I to explore this avenue with DHCD. And that's my administrative request before the board tonight.
Okay, thank you. Let me run it around the board. Anybody have any questions? Start with Nancy.
I have to say that I don't know enough about it to ask questions.
Okay.
Man, you're not alone. There's not even guidance out there on how to deal with the legislation. That's why we have to ask DHCD for guidance, and that's why we have to go through this exercise. So you're not
Makes
alone.
sense to me.
Yeah.
All right. Paul McDougal.
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Mike Raisback.
Yeah, this makes perfectly good sense. I understand what we need to do here, and I will make the motion if you would like me to.
Yeah, let me just make sure. Anybody else on the board have any questions with this?
I think I have a quick question. Just, Melissa, will the request for guidance come in the form of, like, different ideas, like A versus B, or is it just an open-ended request for guidance?
I was the first one to not unmute myself. What will happen is it's 5 or 6 questions that ask general questions about the site. And then DHCD will actually reach out to Evan directly and ask specific questions as to the zoning, what they're looking for, certain things about the site, amenities in the area, which Trammell Crow has also agreed to do all of the legwork once we get the request from the state for that information. So Deirdre, to answer your question, we don't really know what information the state's gonna ask for, but we're ready to give it to them once we get the questions.
Perfect, thanks.
Okay, anybody else before we go to a motion? Mike, looks like nobody else.
Okay, then I would move that we direct Evan to request a guidance as per the discussion that we've just had.
All right, can we get a second?
I
Second?
Second by Nancy. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I didn't hear any nays. Is that good enough, or do you need me to do roll call?
Nope.
Okay. All right.
Thank you very much.
All right, next up. Public hearing, we have 1 Billerica Road, 44 Central Square. The Chelmsford Planning Board will conduct a public hearing on Wednesday, May 12th at 7:30 p.m. Via Zoom to consider an application submitted by Americo Management Co. located at 1 Billerica Road and 44 Central Square, requesting the board to make a determination pursuant to GLC 48S16 that the new proposal contains specific and material changes in the conditions upon which the previous unfavorable action was based. And if so, then consider the site plan approval, section 195-104, and special permits under Article 22, Village Center Overlay District, VCOD, section 195-124, C245, and 195-126. Aquifer Protection District, and any other relief may be deemed necessary. The proposed project consists of reuse and redevelopment of the Oddfellows Hall into commercial space as a 100-seat restaurant and 8 apartments respectively, and the subdivision of the existing property into 3 lots. The site is located in the Village Center Overlay District and consists of approximately 3.5 acres, as shown on Assessors Map 84, Block 334, Lots 10 and 11. All right, the applicant.
Before we get going, Tim, this was noticed for 7:30. Might it not be prudent for us to wait until 7:30 to start this?
That's a great point, Mike. Yeah, we can do that. Do you want to go to 9 Acton Road and then come back?
I think that would be prudent.
Okay, we'll do that. All right, let's skip over to 9 Acton Road. That's going to be John Fanaris requesting the submitted plan be found in accordance with the findings of the CBOD applicability previously issued for this site. Is someone here for John Fanaris available?
Yes, Katie Enright's here from Howard Stein Hudson.
Hi.
How you doing? And if I may, Colleen, may I share my screen? There we go. This is, You see the same presentation that this board saw previously about a month ago. At the last hearing, we discussed the applicability for a 24-unit townhome project on the site where previously an applicability was issued for 32 units in a 4-story building with some recommendations and concerns from the planning board. So we've prepared for you a new conceptual plan. We were here, like I said, about a month ago to talk about the project. There were a few questions that were left unanswered or some concerns that we would bring forward into site plan. One of them being looking to consolidate the entrances to one entrance in and out of the property, which we will definitely look at doing in working with the fire department as we move forward to site plan review with a positive finding tonight. Also additional visitor parking that we'd be looking to add to the project. Also looking at a small play area to be added to the project. And also, Evan had said that we look at, oh, here's Phil Leopoulos now, he's just jumping in. So we had spoken with Evan a little bit about potentially providing a little bit more of a brick walk, potentially along the edge of our property along Beaver Brook. So we'll definitely be looking into that also. I believe the last question had to do with sewerage and the applicability and how it relates to sewerage, and I believe that's why town council is here tonight. It's to discuss our sewerage as it pertains to the applicability.
Okay, do we want to hear from town council then?
I presume that's a yes, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So this is a question that's somewhat similar to the Oddfellows project as well, having to do with a previously issued determination of applicability. There are some significant differences between the two in that this did not go to a final decision, so the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 16 are not applicable to this application. So the only question really in front of the board for this is whether or not the originally issued determination of applicability is still valid. And that really is going to be a factual question that the board needs to determine. So the requirements in making a determination with regards to applicability under Chapter 195, Section 195, 119B1 requires the planning board to make a determination of the proposed type, size, and location meet the criteria for a COA project under Section 195-110. It also requires that a preliminary concept plan be submitted in order to make a finding of applicability. And those determinations are good for a period of 2 years. So the question is the plan that is in front of the planning board currently similar enough that the findings that were made in the original determination of applicability remain valid, or whether there has been a significant enough change with regards to the issues of type, size, and location. And location really shouldn't have changed, but certainly type and size. Is it similar enough to the board's original determination that that determination remains valid, or is it changed enough that a new determination is required? And obviously that has significant impact on a proposed project because the sewer moratorium creates a carve-out for projects that have previously received a determination of applicability and does not have a carve-out if you have not previously, well, there are other carve-outs, but none of them would be applicable, certainly, to this project. So again, it's really a factual determination for this board to make as to whether or not it's similar enough in size and type to continue operating under the original determination of applicability.
If I may, Mr. Chair, just ask, provide a couple of qualifications.
Sure.
Paul, I believe your letter also stated specifically that the project was different, but that it was less detrimental than the previous project.
And that's certainly, a consideration that the board should take into account in its determination. I think that if you're seeing a revision to a determination of applicability that is actually increasing impacts, I think that's going to lean heavily towards a new determination being necessary. I do think that, the way the process is set up, where it requires an initial determination of applicability, but then it requires, typically a special permit process in which the board is more likely than not going to request revisions to reduce impacts, would suggest that, reduction in impacts to a design should still be considered to be within the original determination.
Okay, and lastly, I just wanted to state that I believe if you read through this CBOD determination that was created for the applicability, it actually calls for or essentially requests a different project than that which was prepared for this board. This board did not approve the project that was submitted to the board. In that letter specifically, it stated a less dense project, a less height restricted project, which means wholly that a new plan would have to be brought back to this board prior to moving forward with site plan review.
Okay. Are you done?
Yes, thank you, Tim.
Okay, thank you. All right, let me bring you around the board for questions. Start off with Nancy.
Is there any chance that we have the proof plan to compare this to from the old project? Because that was basically townhouses.
Nancy, this is Philip Iliopoulos. Sorry I'm late. I wasn't expecting this to go first. I do have the proof plan I could email to Evan right now or to Colleen if that would help.
I think it would help to be able to compare this with the proof plan that was part of the original application. In terms of comparing projects and similarities.
I can definitely do that.
If you wanted to send it to me, Phil, I'm sharing right now. If you wanted to just send it to me.
Yeah, and then you can put it up. I'll do it right now. I'm checking my email and I just saw it, so hold on one second. All right.
Do you want me to take other questions while you're doing that, or let's go to Paul McDougall. Do you have anything?
I don't. I think a lot of the questions were answered last meeting.
Okay, Mike Raceback.
Let me see if I've got my mute here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, I completely agree with Paul's analysis of this thing, and I recall enough of the prior plan as well that it certainly looks to me to be within the original applicability determination.
Okay.
I'll move that when the time comes, if you like.
Okay, Deidre?
So I may be being obtuse, Paul. I'm not the most legally astute, I guess. But my main concern with this is that if you have a different plan that looks different, it's a different developer, it's different, just altogether different team, that's not relevant to the applicability.
I thought it went with the property. That's what we were told.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, through you, there's nothing in the bylaw that suggests that a determination of applicability is only for the applicant. It would run with the land generally. Special permit won't run with the land unless they're conditioned specifically to the applicant. So there's nothing in our bylaw that suggests that you wouldn't be able to transfer it to a new applicant and allow them to move forward. And again, the board needs to be cognizant of the fact that the intent of the special permit process is to try to help reduce the impacts. So you don't want to put yourself in a position where you are constraining your ability to do that with future developments by taking too close of a reading here.
Gotcha. Thank you. Deidre, did that answer your question?
It did. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay. Henry's not here, I don't think, right? Mike Walsh?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Katie, just a couple of questions. I know you mentioned early on the play area, the one-way traffic. visitor parking. And you said you would look at that down the road. However, and I know the applicability that we're talking about here now, it just seems like we're trying to, I like the project. I think it's great for the area. It's much different than the other one. I think we're just trying to put, 5 pound, in a 10 pounds of something in a 5 pound bag, especially with the parking here. And I think if the applicant reduces a couple of units here and allows for visitor parking, I'd like to see that up front. And I thought we were going to see something like that tonight, that you took our suggestions. One other question that I'd like to get on the table right now is that we're going to be looking for where you place the air conditioning units, because this looks just identical to a project that just came up in front of us at the last meeting that was built a while ago, when the HVAC units are right at the front door of every place, and they're not shown on the drawing. So that's something we're going to be looking for down the road, and that should be considered in this layout.
But we're just applicability tonight, though. That's all we're doing tonight, and then right down the road.
No, I understand that. I've seen where this has gone for the past 3 years, and I know where it's going to go. So, excuse me 1 second. I want to get my comment out that let's address it now.
Yeah.
Let's get this project looking. Let's get this project looking good, because I don't want to have fights down the road and not get what we're looking for.
Yeah, I would reduce it down to 20. That's what I would recommend. That's not for tonight.
That is for tonight. No, it is for tonight. You should discuss it tonight.
Okay, I think they should.
Paul, excuse me, please, just let Mike finish. I mean, you had your chance, you can get back.
Sorry.
I'm done, but this is where we should talk about it, so they're not surprised down the road.
That's correct. So thank you, Mike, for bringing that up. Is there anything else you want to discuss on that?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I answer to Mike's questions?
Sure.
So my statements earlier was not that it'll be dealt with down the road, but those items will be included in the site plan. So those could be conditions of the applicability tonight. We will reduce to one in and out. We will add additional visitor parking. We will add a tot lot, and we will work with Evan to create the book walk. And if that means less units, then so be it.
So the applicant would be open up to reducing the units.
If it's necessary to accommodate the things required by this process, then we will have to look at that, and we'll have to look at the financial implications in doing so. But right now, we're seeking a project, right, that we believe meets within all of the criteria of the previous yield plan and the zoning bylaw. So,
Okay, great.
yes.
Thank you, Katie.
Those things.
All right.
Can we have something clarified?
Who's that?
This is Paul Haverty.
Oh, sorry, Paul, go ahead.
So, the only thing in front of the board tonight is the determination of applicability, correct?
Yeah.
And the request is to make a determination that the original determination of applicability is still valid. So I don't think you should be adding conditions onto any determination that you make tonight. I think that it either has to be it remains valid or it's not valid. Any conditions that ultimately will be imposed will be part of the special permit process.
Okay, so that we got that. Everybody understands that. It's just to determine applicability, and that's it, I guess. Does anybody else have any questions? Yeah.
Usually we express it in the letter of applicability as concerns, not conditions.
Perfect, Nancy. So we would just like to note that for it. That's all.
That we are concerned about these things in your initial design.
And I think that's great, Mike. You're bringing up points, letting them know that what you're going to be looking for. And we're not saying that's part of it, but that's something that would be coming. Okay, so I don't think we have any other questions. This is a public hearing, or no?
Don't think so.
No, so we don't need, so do we have a motion?
Yeah, I will move that the planning board find the previous grant of applicability determination to be applicable to the project as presented before us tonight.
Excellent. Second?
Second.
Second.
You all went at the same time. I apologize. Second,
We're gonna buck up now.
Paul McDougal. All right, all in favor? And I'm gonna do a roll call. Mike Walsh.
Aye.
Henry is not here. Deidre.
Aye.
Mike Raisback.
Aye.
Paul.
Aye.
Nancy.
Aye.
And myself, I'm aye. I believe that is it. It is passed.
So I have a question for Paul. Now, that's how we're gonna look at One Billerica Road also, right? Very similar?
Correct, except for, and I don't want to get too far into it before it's actually officially on the agenda in another 4 minutes. But there's a separate aspect to that project because there was a final decision on a special permit application from the board. So there's a state statutory requirement for a project that wants to come back in less than 2 years after a final unfavorable decision.
Are you staying with us for a little
I
bit?
am, yes.
All right, sorry to interrupt then.
Okay, it's at 7:30, just about.
Tim, do we, because, Mr. Parley's not here, do we have Erica vote on that prior?
Yes, and Erica will be voting on this. I've already asked, and that's, she will be
The
voting.
last one.
No, it's not a special permit.
No,
Okay, fine, okay.
all right. So next up, do you, what do we have? Is everybody here for the One Billerica Road? It's at 7:30. You think we're all right to start that now? We're at 7:27. You want me to skip this?
Chairman, I would wait for 3 minutes.
All right, yeah, just in case.
Yep.
All right, well, but next up is 200 Turnpike.
We're gonna start that.
Yeah, do we don't have any meetings or anything to...
Anybody got any jokes? Yes.
Yeah. So,
Do you have any meeting minutes?
Yeah, meeting.
Minutes. Nope.
nope, unfortunately, we do not. So, unless you want to wait another minute or two.
Yes. I'll tell you what, I'm gonna go get a glass of water.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, I'll be right back.
7th inning stretch.
Yeah.
There you have it. We'll take a couple of minute break. 7:30, we'll stop back up. Oh, I should have probably just said you started, but I guess it doesn't matter. We should wait. I was going to say, could have you start explaining this one, but we'll wait till they get back.
Yeah, and it probably will help to have me start explaining this process before you throw it to the applicant.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So maybe when Mike gets back, could we start that? I mean, it's not important for them as much as all the board members, right? To hear what you have to say. Well, by the time we get, we'll be ready. So it's 7:29. Thank you.
Brick House Pizza.
All right, it's 7:30. Everybody back from your stretch? We're gonna stop back. We are now at a public hearing, 1 Billerica Road, 44 Central Square. The Chelmsford Planning Board will conduct a public hearing on Wednesday, May 12, 21 at 7:30 p.m. to consider an application submitted by a Miracle Management Company located at 1 Billerica Road, 44 Central Square, requesting the board to make a determination pursuant to GLA 40A that the new proposal contains specific and material changes in the conditions upon which the previous unfavorable action was based. And if so, then consider site plan approval. Section 195-104 and special permits under Article 22 Village Center Overlay BCOD, Section 195, 124C 245 and 195 126 and Article 14 Aquifer Protection District, and any other relief that may be deemed necessary. The proposed project consists of the reuse and redevelopment of the Oddfellows Hall into commercial space as a 100-seat restaurant and 8 apartments respectively, in the subdivision of the existing property into 3 lots. The site is located in the Village Center Overlay District. It consists of approximately 3.5 acres as shown in the Assessors Map 84, Block 334, Lots 10 and 11. Paul, Attorney Haverty, you're going to take it now. Explain to us what we need to do here.
Yes, so thank you, Mr. Chairman. Because this was the subject of a previous decision by the planning board on a special permit application that was done less than 2 years ago, the applicant is subject to the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 16. This is a little bit complicated, and I'm just going to read directly from the statute. So Section 16 states that no appeal, application, or petition which has been unfavorably and finally acted upon by the special permit or permit granting authority shall be acted favorably upon within 2 years after the date of final unfavorable action, unless said special permit granting authority or permit granting authority finds a unanimous vote of a board of 3 members, or by a vote of 4 members of a board of 5 members, or a 2/3 vote of a board of more than 5 members, specific and material changes in the conditions upon which the previous unfavorable action was based, and describes such changes in the record of its proceedings, and unless all but one of the members of the planning board consents thereto, and after notice is given to parties in interest of the time and place of the proceedings, when the question of such consent will be considered. So there's a lot to unpack there. The first thing is, because you have a 7-member board, it requires a 2/3 vote, or 5-2 votes, to make a determination that there are specific and material changes in the conditions upon which the previous unfavorable action was based. Once the board has made that determination, and presuming it makes such determination, it then actually has to grant a consent to allow the application to move forward. And that, interestingly, although the specific and material change determination changes based upon whether it's a 3-person board, a 5-person board, or a 7-person board, the consent vote actually is the same no matter what, and it's all but 1 member of the board has to vote in favor. So the board needs to make both of those determinations before it can then move forward and actually hear the special permit application. Now, a favorable vote that there are specific and material changes does not mean that you are approving a special permit for the project, and the same with regards to consent to move forward. Both of those actions are simply necessary to allow the special permit application to move forward. And once you have made those votes, then the applicant would go and make its presentation the same as any other special permit process. The other thing is, obviously, we're dealing with the same issue with regards to the determination of applicability that the board made previously, and the issues with regard to the sewer moratorium. So it's the same as what we just discussed with the prior application for 9 Acton Road. The board needs to make a determination with regards to the type and size of the development and whether it's consistent with the determination of applicability that was previously granted. Any questions?
Well, one question just before we get to it. So, for example, if this was, say it was approved to move forward, now, the other lots, they wouldn't fall under this, they would still be dealing with the sewer issue. Am I correct? If they came forward with a project, they would have to come forward with a new project if these lots get separated, I'm stating.
So what they would have to do, I mean, first of all, the determination or a special permit that you're going to be issuing now is only for the application that's in front of you. So you're not granting relief for any other parcel under the COED bylaw. The question of whether or not the sewer moratorium would apply if they came forward with a separate application, will probably need to be addressed in the future. But again, this determination expires 2 years after it was originally issued. So,
Gotcha.
once that occurs, any rights under the sewer moratorium are lost no matter what.
Okay. Someone had asked me that, so I figured I would ask. All right, so let me hear from the applicant, and then we can bring it around to the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Fred Faust. I'm with the Edge Group, Royal Mass. I represent AmeriCal Management Company, the operating affiliate for S Bank, Chelmsford Center, LLC, owner 4144 Central Square, more commonly known as Oddfellows Hall. Tonight there's going to be a lot of discussion, as Town Council has already kicked off, about permits, subdivision, applicability, grandfathering, and what is a substantive change. Those are chapters in a long novel that's been going on for about 18 months, and we all want to at least bring to a close and assure the future of Oddfellows. And what it comes down to in a simple way, whether it's tonight or 2 weeks from now, you will have the opportunity to help to designate a developer who will preserve and rehabilitate Oddfellows. So there's going to be a lot of complicated talk, but that's really the bottom line. Tonight, you're going to hear from Melissa Robbins, Project Counsel, Katie Enright from HSH, and Ali Zasharafatain, who is one of the principal developers for Oddfellows Project LLC. So without any further comment, I'll turn it over to Melissa.
Thank you very much, Fred. Can I just ask a point of procedure here? I'm just curious who my voting members are right now. So can that just, Mr.
Yes.
Chair, would you just mind clarifying that for me?
Sure, we have, so Henry probably, I don't believe he's on, right? He hasn't signed on, Colleen?
No, he was gonna be stuck going to Connecticut. He wasn't sure if he would sit on this anyway.
Okay, so then I would, Erica
Hi, Larry.
would step in.
I think a question for Paul would be, Erica can vote on a special permit. Can she also vote on the procedural things leading up to the point of the special permit that Paul outlined?
Mr. Azek, I believe she would be able to. It's all part of one process.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, so does that clarify that, Melissa?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I just was curious also if Deirdre Conley would be voting on this action, because I think that she is recusing herself, so can you just speak to that? So I just want to, I have 6 members then, without Mrs. Conley.
Yeah, Deirdre, did you,
I am recusing, sorry.
okay, so Deirdre will be recusing herself. Henry is not here, and Erica will be voting.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the clarification.
And on the consent, it's going to require a unanimous vote.
That's correct. So for just, and Paul has already stated it, but so they'll be asking for 2 votes. One will be as to the specific material change, and I'll need 5 members to vote for that. And then on just the procedural consent to reopen, that very confusing section he read at the end of the statute, I will need all 6 members to vote on the consent to reopen the actual public hearing. And I won't belabor that anymore. I think Town Council went into that in more depth, so I will skip all of that. But I would like to say just at the beginning that I know that this board has had lots of discussions on preliminary determinations, and I want to be very clear that what the board is seeing tonight is a specific material change. It's evident that this plan does not include that residential portion behind Santander Bank. What the board is seeing is just a scaled down version that is very similar to what the board reviewed during the denial. The changes directly reduce the impacts that the board raised as concerns during that public hearing process, and I think that it's very clear that it deserves a right to be reheard under 40A Section 16. I think that the board should hear just a little bit more detail. I know there's a couple board members that did not sit on that hearing, so what I'd like to do just quickly before the board makes that vote is just allow Katie to say what the larger changes are. We can get more of the detail if the board opens the public hearing. But just to speak to the specific conditions, I'd like to allow Katie just to talk to the plan changes.
Good evening, everyone. Again, Katie Emmett with Howard Stone Hudson. What you see before you on the screen is the site subdivision comparison plans of the proposal that was denied before this board and the proposal that's currently before this board. Previously, I'm just going to speak to a few of the major changes as Melissa stated. Previously, we had sought 4 lots. We had sought a lot for Oddfellows, a lot for the Fisk House, a lot for Santander, and a lot for the multifamily building. The proposal has been reduced to 3 lots. We are looking for a lot for Oddfellows, a lot for the Fisk House, and a lot for Santander. Those lot configurations have changed slightly also in area. The Oddfellows lot specifically has grown by about 4,000 square feet, and certainly the Fisk House lot has grown to essentially accompany the back parking lot. So that's almost 99,000 square feet at this point. Previously, we had renovated the Fisk House as part of the multifamily building plan, along with the renovated Oddfellows, the existing Santander, and the new 24-unit multifamily building. And what you see before you today is a renovated Oddfellows, the existing Santander, the Fisk House as it stands today, and the parking lot which exists in the back of the property. So certainly much more minor improvements. Previously, as I stated, Oddfellows was subdivided with about 22,500 square feet. Our new subdivision accomplishes 26,800 square feet plus or minus. And the previous lot, we had proposed the Oddfellows with 27 parking spaces, and in this application, we've upped that to 37 parking spaces, which would be on the Oddfellows lot. So we hope those are sufficient to determine that there were indeed specific and material changes for this board to be able to open a new public hearing.
Anyone else? Katie, are you guys all set?
Just to answer, I think that the board during the last hearing had asked a question. I just want to be very clear that although there's one portion here that is withdrawn, the difference here is that we have existing structures and existing businesses, and all of those are exactly the same as what the board determined during the preliminary determination for this project. We still have the Oddfellows building, we still have the Fisk building, we still have Santander Bank. It's only the elimination of that building in the rear, just as your questions as to the determination of applicability under COID. And Oddfellows LLC is still here today. They're still a partner to this project, and they were part of the preliminary determination. So that party has not changed. We're happy to answer any questions the board may have regarding these 2 threshold questions to be able to open the public hearing.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. I'll bring it on the board now. Nancy?
Yeah, I have a couple questions for Katie. Does this application include the Fisk House renovation?
It does not. The Fisk House renovation was to be accomplished by Stonegate Construction, who is the applicant for the multifamily building. And since they're no longer part of the project, the Fisk House, we'll speak a little bit more to the Fisk House later in the presentation, but that proposal from the previous application is no longer.
All right. If at some point in the future there was a desire to renovate the Fisk House, would the water utilization be the same as currently, as the current usage rating?
It would solely depend on the use of the structure.
Okay. No further questions.
Thank you, Nancy. Paul?
Applicability leaves the rest, so where does the applicability go on the property? The whole 3 lot now? Is that what we're talking about? For Paul, I guess?
Is the question, does the current determination of applicability apply to all 3 lots?
Equally, like, I don't know how you would even figure that out.
My recollection is that it does, but I haven't actually looked at that.
This is Melissa Robbins speaking. Yes, it does. The determination of applicability covered the entire lot, And we're still asking for relief for the entire lot because the subdivision will still be required on the entire lot. There'll be 3 new lots, so the applicability still remains the same. The major difference is the removal of the building in the back.
Okay, Paul, anything else?
I'm good.
Mike, Raceback?
Yeah, I'm good with this, and, I mean, dropping the building that was the point of contention certainly sounds like a substantial change to me. So, I'll so move if you need it when we get there.
Thank you, Mike. Mike Walsh?
No, I agree. I think there's a major change from the first project we saw. Can I just ask Melissa a quick question?
Sure.
In the last one you were doing is there was an agreement between all the different landowners. Is that what your intention is going to be with this 100-seat parking lot, to utilize that lot that's part of the FISC, and that's going to be tied to this decision eventually down the road?
There will be there still will have to be some sharing agreements and cross easements between these parties, and we can get into those in a little bit more detail. But it's including the parking for the restaurant, which I think is what you're asking about, Mike. We can get into that a little bit more detail in the public hearing if it's reopened. But yes, there will have to still be cross easements. They're certainly still sharing access. They're still sharing some shared utilities coming into the site, so it will still be required.
Because the applicability here too includes parking spaces as well. Or is that not part of applicability?
During the applicability, the parking was reviewed, but the determination said that a determination on whether it was not substantially more detrimental would have to be made during the special permit application. They would have to see a fully designed plan. So that's exactly what will be if the public hearing is reopened.
Okay. That's all I have, Tim. Thank you.
All right. You basically answered all my questions as well. Mike, Raceback, do you have a motion?
Yeah, I believe we're going to need 2 motions here. The first one would be to find that the project has changed substantially and therefore to permit the applicants to proceed.
Specific and material change.
Yes, specific and material change. That wording should probably be in there.
Okay. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Paul McDougall, second. All in favor, and I'll do a roll call. Erica?
Hi.
Nancy?
Yes.
Paul?
Aye.
Mike Raceback?
Aye.
Mike Walsh?
Aye.
And I am an aye. First one is passed unanimous. The second one, can we get a motion?
Yeah, I believe that is a motion for us to permit the applicant to proceed with the special permit.
Move forward.
Consent.
Yeah. Consent to move forward.
Yes.
Okay, motion to consent to move forward. Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
That was Paul McDougall again. Second, all in favor? I'll do a roll call. Mike Walsh?
Aye.
Mike Raceback?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
And Erica?
Aye.
And I am an aye. So unanimous.
Okay.
Both motions have passed. Thank you. Do we need to do anything else with that, Paul?
Mr. Chairman, now you just need to move into the special permit hearing process.
Okay, excellent, thank you. All right, so now the applicant, are you there, Melissa?
Yep. Good evening, Mr. Chair. Can you still see me? I'm sorry that I'm in Westford and the lights have blinked twice and my computer has blinked twice, but I can still see you. I can't see me. So if you can hear me, I'll keep talking.
We can hear you.
Okay. So now that the hearing's open, what I'd like to do is give a preliminary overview of the plan. And then we'll have a couple speakers speak to the overall development and then we can answer any questions of the board. So again, yes,
Melissa, can I just interrupt you quickly before we do start the public hearing? Mike
Yes.
Raceback, would you mind just reading?
Okay, do you want this read? I think the statement that I have here, I think is pertinent to 200 Turnpike. Is that
We will put it forward for the both public hearings, just so.
okay? Let me then. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, we've worked up something of a statement as to how we would hope and expect public participants in our meeting to manage. And given tonight that we have at least one, possibly two, with a lot of interested parties, let me read this. Planning Board, Town of Chelmsford. In order to have a respectful and productive meeting, please wait for the chairman to recognize you before speaking. Please direct all of your comments to the chairman and do not engage the applicant or their representatives. Please keep your comments respectful and concise. Each speaker that is recognized by the chair will have a maximum of 3 minutes to speak. Now, and let me warn that anybody not following these guidelines can be removed. We have the button to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, and sorry, Melissa, I just wanted to get that out there before we get going, so we're all set to go now, also.
well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. So again, we're here tonight for the development of 1 Billrica Road and 44 Central Square. This is a transformational project that will help preserve and restore this area. Right now, as part of this project, we're looking to restore and maintain the Oddfellows building. In order to do that, we're requesting the relief from the planning board under a couple sections. We'll be requesting site plan approval, special permit relief under the Village Center Overlay District. Within that special permit, we'll be seeking a parking waiver, a parking special permit, and then also some waivers, which we can go through a little bit later. We also will be seeking a special permit for the Aquifer Protection District. I won't go into the site in detail. I think everybody on this call is very familiar with the site. We have 3 existing uses, Santander Bank, the Oddfellows building, which is currently vacant and has been for some time, and the Fisk House building, which is also currently vacant and has been for some time. As I mentioned, this development is a cooperative effort between the property owner, Marical Management Company, and Oddfellows Project LLC. Your approval will allow for the subdivision to be created so that the Oddfellows building can be maintained and renovated and kept in its historical nature. The plan does call for the continued operation of the Santander Bank, which is located along Billrica Road. And the Fisk House will be separated on its own lot, but the renovation will be deferred. And we can go into that in a little bit more detail later. Consistent with the preliminary determination, the intention of the Oddfellows building will be to be renovated into a restaurant containing 100 seats on the first level. And then on the second and third level, it will contain 8 one-bedroom apartments. I want to get into a little bit more detail on the Oddfellows building. I think it's important. It's historical. We've been through the HDC and received approval. And I would like to go through that with the board. What I'm going to do is actually turn over to Fred Faust, and he's going to go through some of the historical nature and some other questions regarding the Oddfellows Hall.
Thank you. And again, as Melissa said earlier, we appreciate the fact that there are several new board members. So we'll try and go through this quickly, but they don't have the same background, and we want to impart the important information. And just to correct one of the speakers at the last public hearing, and I made this point at the HDC meeting too, I've been accused of a lot of things, and one of the things at a public hearing was being from California. I'm not from California. I'm from Lowell. I've been involved in the greater Lowell community for some time, and am actually a property owner in Chelmsford as well. Back in 1998, actually, our firm and Woodman Associates in Newburyport developed the first village district plan. And we've been involved with the business community and local residents ever since. So we have a stake here, beyond this discussion. The the owners could have come back with a different plan and readdressed all of the issues that came up, but we did listen very closely to the abutters and some of the concerns that were expressed by the planning board. And the urgency really is to save the Oddfellows, and we're going to show you a couple of pictures, but the building is in poor condition. And as town council explained, if you did not make the vote and we had to come back 2 years from now, there's really a question whether this building would even be standing. So recognizing, Katie, if you could just go back to the previous slide. You know, recognizing that we could have had additional discussion with abutters and that may have added to a more orderly and probably more productive discussion as to the last meetings. We did, beyond the normal abutter notification, send a personal letter out to the material abutters, and we have engaged in a substantive discussion with 3 or 4 of those abutters. We're trying to make an effort to have a dialogue, to listen to concerns and explain this latest project. And one of the things that we need to say and have said is that nothing that you will do tonight or at a subsequent meeting at this point will have anything to do with the rear lot. It's not on the table, and none of the motions that are made here will have any impact on allowing a development of the rear lot without this same proponent or a new proponent coming back and advocating for a plan. And in the event that happens, we assure you there'll be additional discussion with this board and town officials. So we're here to save the Oddfellows. Since the previous proposal, as mentioned, Stonegate Construction has withdrawn from the project team. The developers represented here are Ali Zasharafatan and Human Bayani. You may know Ali from Fishbone's Restaurant, and he's going to address the board. And Human Bayani, a partner, is an accomplished developer who's done a lot of residential and commercial development in Greater Boston. So just going into the details, which have been endorsed by the Historic District Commission, the effort responding to their suggestions was to make the original facade of the building as close back to the original 1890s building. And you can see that sort of smaller middle picture. There's a picture of the storefronts there. And this is the original facade and storefront configuration. And we're also preserving the addition closest to the brook, which is something you would do because you have to respect the evolution of the building on a historic basis. The materials, one for one, have been approved by the HDC as well. If you could go on to the next slide, Katie. And again, these will be woods or hardy board, the individual emblems on the building and the architecture and the nature of the windows, the color of the windows, and the other materials, again, are all respectful of the research that we've done with regard to the historic nature of the building. Next slide. And these are just some examples of both the storefront and some possibilities with regard to signage. Obviously, we'll have to come back to the board and to the building department, and we'll have to respect the zoning requirements with regard to the signage ordinance, which we will do. There is no name as of yet for the restaurant, and these are just examples of signage that might be included on the facade of the building. The building is in very poor shape. It's had a lot of water damage. There's mold. We've had several leaks. There's a sump pump. Fortunately, it's functioning. The boiler comes from the 1950s. It's functioned on and off, and the building needs a great deal of help. And that's, again, the reason that we're coming here for the Oddfellows. This subdivision will allow the Fisk House as well to be solicited for development. However, the real urgency here is to save Oddfellows and to do it in as quick an order as possible. We're very fortunate that the developers, after spending, again, the last 18 months in substantial monies, have hung in here and are willing to proceed. Again, for those of you who don't know him, Ali Zasharafatan is the owner and principal involved with Fishbone's Restaurant, which is a real asset to the downtown. And we think an additional restaurant with moderate 8 units of housing will again complement what's going on and hopefully be a leader to incent other parties to do additional development in the town center. So again, the subdivision is necessary because you will not be able to finance the Oddfellows or the Fisk House and get a title to these properties. So the bank will not lend you any money unless you're basically the owner of these buildings. And that's one of the purposes of the subdivision. So the request we're making tonight is based on a revised agreement made with Ali Ashrafatane and Human Bayani. There's additional parking included here, and Ali will address some of the parking issues. But that's basically the summation. I'm glad at a later time to answer any questions that might come up. And that's a summary of a general presentation on the plan for being advocated tonight. Thank you for your time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Ali, you want to say something?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members of the board. As Fred mentioned, my name is Ali Ashrafatane. I've owned and operated Fishbones Restaurant at 34 Central Square in Chelmsford since 2006. I've been a member of the Chelmsford Business Association, and I've been involved in the local business since then. Again, as I'd mentioned at the HDC meeting, I'm not a developer per se, or maybe I am, but I am a businessman first and foremost. I'm here to rehab a historic building that has been sitting empty for 12 plus years. Is really getting deteriorated before our eyes. I had mentioned to Fred that if that property ever comes up on the market, that I'll be interested. Fred approached me about 2 years ago, and we put a team together, and my financial interest and my interest was only Oddfellows, and remains that. I know there are going to be issues about parking, and right now we have, as Katie mentioned, 37 parking spaces. There is not going to be a perfect project to save the Oddfellows. When I started Fishbones in 2006, I remember before the boards of selectmen, the question was the same exact thing: parking. And then we have thrived in that 15 plus years that have been in the Central Square. I just want to tell you that the parking in the Central Square is going to take everybody's effort, all the businesses in the Central Square. I deal with it on a daily basis. I see people, our customers come at 9 o'clock in the morning, use our parking and go across the street to Chelmsford gift shop, use the vacuum place. Nobody's towing their cars. Someone could go to CVS, park their car there, get their prescription. They can walk over to Fishbones, get a gift card, or go across the street and do whatever they need to do. Nobody's towing their cars. So we have to come together as businesses to share our assets, which is parking spaces, to make this work. There is not going to be a 3-decker garage municipal parking in the Central Square, nor do we need it. We're talking a 100-seat restaurant, is not a 400-seat restaurant, is nothing massive, it's only 4,000 square feet on the first floor, and 8 modest rental apartment above. In the last few weeks, just to get ready for this meeting, I have looked at my sales and see what my peak hours are. My peak hours are between 5:30 and 7:30 at night. 5:30 and 7:30. Santander is closed at that time. Fisk House most likely will be an office building, and they'll be closed. So we're going to have additional parking. To us, I'm going on the limb and speaking for America that we would be able to use it, but we've had discussion that we could use those parking on after hours. So we need to keep an open mind about the parking, how we can make it work. And I truly, truly believe that it's going to work. It's not going to be an issue. If you go to Central Square between 3 and 5 p.m., yes, there's a traffic jam. After 5 p.m., there are only 2 cars deep at the lights. So it's only 2 hours, and it has nothing to do with our business. That's our slowest time, between 3 and 5. So that's just the normal traffic that is going through. The sense I get, everybody's happy about Oddfellows being developed. We have been very sensitive to the design of the building. We have designed it in a way that, you know, if you're turning from Route 4 and 129 into Central Square, you're going to see a nice, beautiful storefront, beautifully rehabbed building. It is going to be cheaper for us to knock the building down and rebuild it, but we're not going that route. We're spending the extra money to save the building. So I'm asking the board to help us save Oddfellows. Let's not make Oddfellows suffer any longer. And are we going to sacrifice Oddfellows for parking, or are we going to sacrifice parking for Oddfellows? And I think that's the question I want to put up to the board. Thank you very much.
So
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
brief presentation on,
Katie, before you.
yeah,
Mr. Chair, just very quickly, because the Fisk House came up, and I do want to mention that we're going to do a walk around and a walk through with members of the HDC next Tuesday. They've expressed concern about the condition of the fence and the building, and the owners are committed to properly maintaining that property. I do want to mention that AmeriCal did not get the property back. There was a 20-year lease to the bank on that property. So AmeriCal just got control of that building, all these buildings actually, as of June 1st of this year. Thank you.
Thank you.
okay. And I just want to get to the meat a little bit of the site plan itself. As what we did was we prepared, Katie Allard again from Howard St. Hudson, we prepared a plan that drilled down kind of into the areas of the site that we were looking to change. As you can see from the layout and materials plan that's before you today, what we've tried to do is create a balance, provide a proposed patio working within the existing improvements that are out on the site today. Because we're not redoing the parking lot, we worked within the existing retaining wall that exists on site today that's in this location here, and we extended the patio out from the new restaurant front door into this area to create an outdoor seating area. What we also did here was we moved the walk away from the building so that we can increase some green space next to the building and add a piece of sidewalk here to connect us from Central Square to the proposed patio. By creating the proposed patio as a flat area adjacent to the building, we needed to change the grades of the walk, leaving the patio down the parking lot. So you'll see here, there's a stair area down, essentially bringing you into this back parking area here. Because we increased impervious slightly because of the proposed patio, we thought it would be a great idea to increase landscaping at the back door to the Oddfellows. Right now, it's essentially paved right up to the Oddfellows building. So we've created 2 landscape areas on either side of the Oddfellows door at the rear, and that keeps us to an equal amount of impervious surface. You can see we've added some additional shrubs in that area and some trees. And the vegetation that's located throughout the rest of the site would remain. Regarding parking requirements, I know Ali spoke to it a little bit, and Melissa spoke to it in her initial presentation about the waiver. Under the previous application, the bylaw stated that a 50% reduction in parking was required under the Village Center Overlay District. We understand that since then, the planning board and town meeting will take up a vote to reduce it only by 20% instead of 50%. So what we've done is we have looked at the parking and increased the parking on the Oddfellows lot to 37 spaces. What that does is it gives us a requested reduction of 33%. So what we've done is what we've proposed to do is really meet in the middle. Previously, we had proposed 27 spaces on the Oddfellows lot and provided the land area to go with it. Now we've provided the land area to accomplish 37 spaces on the Oddfellows lot with a 20% reduction. That's only a difference of 7 spaces. And again, those 7 spaces, as Ali stated, could be easily accomplished around the Fisk House and Santander after business hours to allow that. And when looking at the Fisk House and Santander itself, certainly there's significant excess spaces on the lot. There's 67 excess spaces on the lot based on all 3 uses. The Fisk House being used potentially looked at here as office. Certainly that would change the parking requirement if it was not office, and Santander requirement previously, and looking at both of those projects with only the 20% reduction. To go to the grading change and utility plan, again, we tried to keep the amount of improvements and the amount of disturbance as little as possible. So we will need to propose a grease trap for the proposed restaurant, which is proposed in this location here. And this just shows the grading and the landscape area, again, that we showed you in the previous slide. There's been some conversations since or some letters that were issued since the previous application. So this is something that's not been submitted to the board yet and will be prior to the next hearing. But we wanted to be proactive in answering to some of the town engineer's questions and also some of the fire department's questions and comments. Essentially, the town engineer was looking for us to better handicapped access to the new proposed patio and the new door to the restaurant. So we've changed the striping in the parking lot, or we will be issuing a plan to the planning board showing a change in the striping within the parking lot to allow for 2 handicap spaces in closest proximity to the door. What we've also done, so this reduces the parking by 1 space. We had in the original application 38 spaces with Oddfellows, now we have 37. They also asked that we bring a ramp for ADA accessibility from these spaces to the sidewalk in Central Square. So we worked with the engineering department to do that. So there's a piece here that's now been updated right now. The sidewalk dips down to cross the road here between these 2 concrete barriers. Now you'll be able to come around and basically access these spaces here. I believe you're going to read Christina's letter at some point later. Most of the other comments related to work within the existing drainage system. We're proposing no drainage upgrades as part of this project. We were not increasing impervious surface and doing very little work to the parking lot itself. But she did ask that we go in and review the existing system that's there today as far as making sure it's cleaned out, inspected, making sure it's working properly. So that we will do. And also the fire department still maintained their comment regarding the 2 concrete vertical granite islands that exist here today that bring us out to Central Square. They'd like that vertical granite removed and have flush concrete in that area to open up the ability for emergency access vehicles to more easily access the site. So we've asked, we'll be proposing this change, which will take out the vertical granite curb to create 2 scored concrete flush islands in that area. And again, this is just the grading, drainage, and utility plan that kind of will go along with that change as we move forward. That is really the meat of it. I'd be happy to go through the waiver list. I believe if you've looked through it, it's pretty, I'm going to go to the end of the site plan here. It's pretty self-explanatory. The majority of the waivers that we need are existing conditions where we're not proposing any new structures. We are proposing new lot lines throughout the project, and I believe in most cases you'll see that the waivers consist of things like buffer parking proximity to lot lines, and also things like existing setbacks to lot lines, which in most cases I believe are greater than allowed by the bylaw. But I'd certainly be happy to go through that waiver list with you if there's any questions or concerns. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Melissa. If there's anything else.
Thank you very much, Katie. So I just want to be clear one more time. The board will still need to make the same finding under the Center Village Overlay District. They would still need to make the same finding under site plan review. The waivers that were determined to be unsuitable during the last public hearing have been removed with the removal of that back structure. The only additional special permit relief we're seeking is because the town meeting during the gap in time here passed a new rule that changed the reduction in parking as of right from 50% to 80%. So even though we've improved parking for the Oddfellows building, we still do need that special permit relief with that rule change, just so the board understands what that additional special permit within your special permit is for. But we are happy to answer any questions the board may have regarding our presentation.
Okay, thank you. Let me bring it around the board. See if you have any questions. Start with Nancy.
Yeah, a question. I remember from the original application, there was a concern about having marked walkways in the parking, through the parking area. What are you doing to address that?
I believe in the previous application, it was because we had residents that were going to be living in the rear buildings that might want to frequent the Central Square, the Center Village, and other businesses within the lot. And now that we no longer have residences in the back, we believe that people will be walking from Central Square, and the connectivity to each of the buildings is available from Central Square.
So I can understand the foot traffic from Central Square, but I'm still concerned about the fact that you have this parking lot in the back and there's no designated walking area for that parking lot.
No, I would just say, not to say that there's not a concern about safety, but that parking lot has functioned without an incident for 20 years, and it's there, for no consideration on the part of the developer. So it certainly would make sense to accommodate public safety issues in the area to be developed. And I would say, like the remainder of the parcel, we could certainly address that as proposals come forward to develop the site as a whole.
And I guess my concern would be that over the last 20 years, the parking in that parking lot has been incidental and has not been specific to a given specific and concentrated to a use on that property.
That's
I guess I'll give that question to the rest of the board and see how they feel about it.
No, it's a legitimate question. Maybe that's something that Katie can take a look at, and we can focus on the areas that will have the most pedestrian traffic. So, for example, since we are doing sidewalks around Oddfellows, maybe we can funnel those folks towards the walking paths that will be created at Oddfellows. So, perhaps you let us come back to the next meeting and better address that question.
I think I would appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Okay.
That's my only question.
Okay, next up, Paul.
So part of the conditions of the last agreement, I guess we'd call it, would be subsection F1. You guys were able to get away with being closer than 25 feet, am I correct? From Beaver Brook? Was that part of the first application?
So we, previously what we did was we maintained the existing edge of pavement that is out there today.
Because according to the master plan, there would be a pathway constructed. So I'm saying there should be a pathway. How we do it?
You're talking about the brook walk?
Yeah, the brook walk.
Okay, and I believe, so the brook walk itself, and I know the previous application, so what we went through in the previous application with the Department of Environmental Protection was essentially, in as few words, said that they wouldn't allow pedestrians and the brook to mix, and they wouldn't allow for a private developer to create the brook walk on the site. We did it across the street 2 years ago. I agree, it sounds silly. They didn't bother us on the grist mill. There was no comments or questions about the brook walk on the grist mill. They unequivocally said we will not develop a brook walk on this property as part of a private land development project.
You should probably take that out of the bylaws.
What we had looked at before was, in speaking with the Conservation Commission, if they were to do it, there might be kind of a way to get a 30-inch wide pervious surface along the brook, and that was being vetted and looked at by Katie Gerton, your conservation agent. So long story short, we're willing to work with the board on potential future brook walk and what that might be, but what that commitment is today, we're not exactly sure.
Okay.
Is that all you got, Paul? Okay, Mike Raisback. Once we go through the board, we'll read in the letters and then we'll go to the public. Mike Raisback.
I don't have have any comments at this point. A couple of things I thought about are being addressed here. Looks pretty good.
Deidre's not here. Mike Walsh.
Yeah, I got a couple. Is Paul Haverty still on the phone?
I'm right here.
Can I ask you a question? So, the reduction of parking, which is the town article that we've got coming forward in town meeting, is scheduled for a vote in June. Is this applicant subject to that reduction requirement in June?
Yes, because they haven't received a building permit or a special permit prior to the first notice of publication of the warrant article.
Oh, okay. All right. So I didn't know.
It's not subject to them yet because it hasn't passed town meeting yet. But when it does pass, it's retroactive to when it was first noticed.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. Katie, I think I like the project. I think the list of waivers up front would be great if we could get those at the next meeting, that everything we have is very clear. And then I know it's early on, but I'd like to give you a little suggestion. Is that outdoor seating that's right up front, that you're looking for that outdoor patio? Is that going to be outdoor seating for eating?
This area here it is.
Yes. So I'd make a recommendation to you early on, being a board member, which you probably think this is crazy, but I would reduce the parking in that area and add landscaping in there so that people are not looking at the hoods of cars while they're eating, and make it a little bit more enjoyable, and up your count that you're looking for a waiver, and move the handicap parking down if you can, just a few spaces. That's just my suggestion. I know it's out of the ballpark of what normally I would suggest, but it might just make the project a little more accessible. Yes, Alan.
May I chime in? Yeah, Mr. Walsh, I understand what you're saying, but our plans are to create some type of a railing with the landscaping so it would buffer the cars from the patio. So it won't be somebody sitting and looking at a car logo, for example. I understand what you're saying, but we would create maybe a wall or some kind of shrubbery that it would buffer the cars.
Great. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. Actually, Mr. Chair, can I just respond to Mike's request? So we provided a waiver list very similar to the one we provided previously as part of the application. So there's a separate waiver list that was given to the board that calls out, again, the existing places that we basically existing conditions that require waivers and new conditions that require waivers that we also highlighted similarly to the previous project, and that's within your packet. And I'd be happy to go through those tonight if you'd like.
No, I'm fine right now. I must have missed it. I'll follow up on it right now. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I have the parking. I'm just kind of curious on why we're still looking for a huge reduction in the parking. You just said you had 60-something other spaces between the other two, but maybe there's a way to, I would like to see more parking there. Because as we know, once we do have a restaurant in there, it is going to be very, very busy. But other than that, I think it's a great plan, and looking forward to seeing more. Can we have somebody read the letters, like Nancy or Mike? Raise back. Anyone?
I have them here, Tim, if you want.
Okay. Yeah, if you don't mind reading in the letters, that'd be great.
Alrighty.
The problem is I don't have them.
Okay, look up to the entire board, so sorry if you didn't see them. Alrighty, so the first one is from Center Water District, and they have an attached letter. The letter says, oops, it's on the back. Their letter says, "Dear board members, the Chelmsford Water suggests the installation of any necessary protection to prevent the migration of contaminants if found during the excavation. In addition, the Board of Water Commissioners, upon approval of the proposed project, would request the following three things to be part of your order of conditions. Water is for domestic use only. Number 2, water saving devices should be utilized throughout the facility. And number 3 is xeriscape landscaping should be implemented to maximize water usage. Minimize water usage. We have Christina's letter, engineering. Dear members, this office has reviewed the site plan by Howard Stein Hudson Associates, consisting of 6 sheets dated April 7th, 2021. As a result of this review, the office has the following comments. Number 1, the department shall be notified when the work on site is to commence in order to arrange for inspections. Number 2, no alterations to the drainage system are proposed under this application. Any revision to the drainage system shall be submitted and approved by this office. Number 3, the existing stormwater operation and maintenance plan shall be followed as described in the report. Copies of any inspections and/or other reports done in accordance with the plan shall be forwarded to the engineering office. Number 4, all the drain lines and structures must be cleaned out prior to issuance of building permits. The storm scepter will need to be cleaned and inspected. The applicant shall provide documentation that this work has been completed, and a separate inspection report shall be submitted for the storm scepter, which certifies that it is still in good working order. Number 5, the design engineer is reviewing improvements to the handicap access from the proposed handicap parking spaces to the building entrance. Number 6, the DPW will accept a payment in lieu to improve the sidewalk with the tactile pad and ramp. Number 7, a site as-built shall be provided upon completion of the work on site. The as-built shall be from a ground survey and submitted in AutoCAD and paper form. The proposed sewer work, this is number 8, the proposed sewer work will require permitting and applicable fees from the DPW sewer division for connection to the municipal sewer system. Number 9, a road opening permit is required from the Chelmsford DPW Highway Division for work within the central square right-of-way. Number 10, trench permits shall be filed as necessary per 520 CMR 14, Chapter 82A. The design engineer has received design and drafting review comments from this office. If you have any questions, please contact my office. Town Engineer, Christina Papadopoulos. We have our Building Commissioner, Jose Negron, has no comments. Our Board of Health, Susan Rosa, has a C attached letter. Dear Planning Board members, this letter is about American Management Company, Inc. proposal for 1 Bellricker Road and 44 Central Square. As indicated in the letter to the Planning Board in February 2021, the Board of Health received notifications, see attached, and there is an attachment, from DEP Bureau of Waste Site Cleanup and Hazardous Spills at 1 Bellricker Road, S Bank, Chelmsford Center, LLC. Per the notification, hazardous materials of PFAS, I'm not going to get this one right, trichloroethene, CIS-1, 2, there's a lot of chemicals there, were released on the property on 1/8/20. As the Chelmsford Health Director, I have concerns over the possible effects to public health should the project at 1 Bellricker Road and 44 Central Square require any excavation that would disturb or release these contaminants to the major groundwater sources. The Health Department has not received any further notification from DEP stating that the required response actions have been completed by the property owner. Prior to this project at 1 Bellricker Road and 44 Central Square being approved, the Health Department would like to receive documentation that remediation from this spill has been completed per DEP requirements and/or preventative and proactive measures American Management Company, Inc. proposes to address this concern. Sue Rosa. And the attachments are the DP filings. We have Fire Department letter. Dear members of the board, the Fire Prevention Office has reviewed the updated proposal for Oddfellows Building located at 44 Central Square and finds the following. Fire department apparatus access is acceptable. However, the island at the entrance to the property from Central Square shall be converted to a flush concrete as was previously requested in the prior review review letters. The proposed dumpster location is acceptable. A sprinkler system conforming to NFPA 13 and a fire alarm system that complies with NFPA 72 shall be installed with a change in the use and a proposed total renovation of the building. Other fire protection features such as standpipes and emergency responder radio coverage may be required. This office would approve this plan with these conditions, and I ask the board to make this part of the approval process. Captain Katufis. And the last one we have from Chelmsford Historic District Commission to the Planning Board. The Historic District Commission unanimously approved the plans presented by Americal et al. For Historic Oddfellows Building. The Commission is very excited about the plans and that a beautiful historic building will no longer be sitting empty and an eyesore right in the center. We hope that you agree and approve the exciting plans that will be presented on the Oddfellows Building. Sincerely, Ms. Brenda Lovering, Chair of the Historic District. And that's it, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we went around the board, so now we'll go to the public. Katie, Colleen, do you have anyone from the public?
Not see anybody. Oh, I do. Mr. McCrigney. Hello there.
Hello, and thank you. Mike Rigney, 19 Billrica Road. A couple of comments first, and then a couple of questions to finish it up. First of all, I like this project. I'd like to see it go forward if we can do it in a responsible way. Secondly, Colleen just brought it up. The DEP is watching this property. As a butters, we recently received a letter from an engineering firm that had been contracted by Americal. It looks like Americal is, through the engineering company, is going to basically make the argument that they are not the source of these contaminants, that this is all downstream stuff from the dry cleaners, both upriver and in the old Stop and Shop Plaza. And I find that argument pretty credible, actually. There isn't any evidence that hazardous materials of the type that were found were stored on the site. And it looks like there's just a plume of contamination that's migrating through the center of the town. I bring it up because I hope this is something that needs a little bit further discussion, I think, and I'm curious to hear comments from the proponent about how they're going to handle disposal of any waste that gets generated at the site. But I don't think it should be a showstopper unless additional developments occur. The other thing is the Brook Walk. I will say that as a member of the Center Village Master Plan Committee, I had a conversation with a DEP circuit rider who was slightly more encouraging than whoever it was that talked with Katie. There is a possibility, I think, that we might get some kind of Brook Walk built there. I don't think we should give up on it right away. I also think it'll take some further discussion, but I think there's no reason that couldn't happen either coincident with or even after this proposal is approved, if it's approved. A couple of questions, Mr. Chair. Is there any reason we can't get these public letters from public departments put into the agenda for public review before the meeting? And second, what's the actual number of parking spaces required by the Oddfellows development?
Katie, do you want to answer that?
Sure. With The 80%, here, let me pull up that slide again. 80% is the new bylaw, so the new bylaw would require, I believe it was 45, let me go to that, here we go. 44 spaces.
44. Right. But there are another 10 spaces required for the apartments, yes?
This is,
I think you've done the calculation correctly for the restaurant. It's just overlooking the required parking spaces for the 8 apartments. Isn't it one per single bedroom apartment? So that's 1 space each plus what? 1 for every 5. 1 visitor for every 5, something like that.
yeah, that's correct. It's 1.5 per space. Oh, here's my notes. So we needed restaurant plus, right, I'm sorry, yeah, we needed an additional 14 spaces for the resident.
I think the number is 44, right?
It's 14 plus 44.
You've got the 44 for the restaurant, and you don't get a reduction for the,
that is correct, it's 14, yep.
But you do get the you do get the 20% by right. And so
That's correct.
you're looking,
I'll update this, we are looking
for an additional reduction.
21. That's correct, it's 21 spaces, I apologize for that.
So I guess my final question is really one for the board rather than the proponent. If you allow this project to go forward, and I think there are plenty of reasons to allow it to go forward, what are your options with parking? If the new owner of whatever the Fisk House is, whether it's America or somebody else, if they bring forward a project that consumes all of those parking spaces that is permitted by right, what can you do? There were 25 cars in that parking lot at like 6:45 today. None of them were having steak. It's important for this town to have some parking in the center, some public parking. And I don't know exactly what your timeline is. I understand from the proponent, Mr. Faust has been extremely good about reaching out to at least Jojo and myself as abutters. My understanding is that AmeriCal is looking to have further conversations with the town, possibly about parking in that back lot. And if the town were able to secure some kind of long-term lease or other control over, probably 25, 30 spots, then I think this would be a no-brainer. Because I think Mr. Zosharafatian's suggestion that they're not going to be using those spots all day long and that you can do some spot sharing in the center is in fact correct. That was really what's at the heart of the current 50% by right reduction and even the 20% by right reduction. It assumes that, in a commercial zone, you're going to have businesses with peaks at different times of the day, and they can share spots. My concern, from a big picture perspective, is that we don't have that under control yet. And I don't really have a recommendation for you, but I hope to hear you talk more about what the possibilities are, in terms of making this work going forward. Not just for this year, not just for this particular application, but for all of the businesses in the center and for whatever else may be developed on that site. Thanks.
Thanks. Stephen Stovall would like to say something?
Sure.
Stephen?
Yes, thank you very much, and good evening. My name is Stephen Stowell. I live at 22 Pleasant Street and am a lifelong resident of Chelmsford, and thank you for the opportunity to comment. I'm also a past member of both the town's Historical Commission and Historic District Commission, and having been very familiar with the Oddfellows building over the years, I'm excited to see the potential reuse and rehab of this significant historic building in the center. Having been built in 1896 in the Queen Anne architectural style, it's a very prominent structure and one that has great potential. Unfortunately, as you all know, the building has been vacant for many years and has not positively contributed to the center, either visually or economically, for some time. Absent this development, the potential exists down the road that if left as is and undeveloped, the building could further deteriorate and eventually be threatened with demolition. This proposal is actually consistent with the building's original use, as even though built and owned originally by a fraternal organization, it contained commercial space from day one, which is consistent historically with other similar period fraternal buildings. And as early as 1906, contained upper floor apartments, which existed until after the mid-20th century. In my view, the proposal will physically and economically revitalize the building, preserving and rehabilitating a very significant historic structure in the center. And I hope that you all look favorably upon the applicant's request. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Anyone else comment?
I see Mr. Harrington out there. Would you like to say something, John?
You're on mute.
Hit the button. I'm asking you to unmute.
John, you're on mute. There we go.
Hey,
Colleen, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good to hear your voice as always. Now, just to, back up a little bit, as many of the board members realize that closest abutter to this Oddfellows building. And I was thrilled when I heard that Ollie was going to take on the task of taking over that building and get it back to where it used to be. When I was a young fella, there was always apartments upstairs, and there was a bank there, and it was a lively building. It was an asset to the town of Chelmsford. If it isn't, brought back again, quite honestly, it's going to fail, meaning either tore down, or my biggest concern is it's going to be burnt down one way or another. It could be a fire there. And my building is 11 feet. My family building is 11 feet from that building. So I have a couple concerns. Number one, who's in my building? And by the way, Fishbones is 16 feet from my own building. So the point I'm trying to make, which I've said before, is I hope the board takes, approves this applicant's suggestion to put in his restaurant and so forth. It will be an asset to the town. It will save a building that's been there since 1900s, 1898, and do the right thing. And I say the right thing. Other than that, it's just going to fail, and there'll be plenty of parking, I guess, because that building will be gone forever. That's my comment. I strongly approve this project. It's long coming. Thank you. Colleen, anyone else?
I see John Reddy. Would Mrs. Reddy like to say something?
Yes, I would. Donna Reddy, and I live at 11 Cushing Place. I just want to also throw my full support behind this project. The Center Village Master Plan's goals, as we know, is to make the center more walkable and make it a destination spot. I think this restaurant would make it a destination spot. The goals are also to support businesses, and that building being empty is definitely not, without a business in there, is not any help to our center. And it's also, the goal is to encourage people to enhance their buildings so that the aesthetic buildings or the aesthetic area will look nice. And I think this fits all of that criteria. I'm also on the Historic District Committee, and I really want to see the Oddfellows building and eventually the Fisk House restored to its original beauty that they used to be. I remember when they looked a lot nicer than they do now. And I really don't want to see them deteriorate any further, which others have mentioned. And I really applaud Ali for really stepping up and moving forward with this project to save the structure, which has become an eyesore. I really feel that this would be a shame if we were to lose a part of our history. I'm also in real estate, and it really makes sense to divide this parcel up into different parcels, making each building separate. There's a far better chance of finding a buyer who will fix each one of those buildings up rather than what we tried before, which was a larger development coming in and doing a whole practically city block. And as we know, that ended very badly. So I do think dividing this is going to work out very nicely. From the standpoint of being a resident of this town for the last 50 some odd years and a neighbor to this potential business, I am looking forward to having another restaurant right in walking distance of my house. I would like to see more red meat restaurants here instead of people getting in their cars and driving to Boston or to Burlington so they can go to a nice restaurant. Ali has proven to be, I think, a very good businessman. He has an excellent reputation. If anyone tries to get into Fishbones on the weekend, you know it's booked solid. And that's because he has created a good product and a nice atmosphere there. I feel that he will no doubt do the same thing with this restaurant. It will be a well sought after place to go for someone to go out for a great meal and a really memorable night out. So I wholeheartedly support this project, and I hope we will sincerely not miss this opportunity again to save the Oddfellows building. And last and final, I feel with this project is, I think of what Dennis would say, and he would say, I feel this project will keep Chelmsford, Chelmsford. And with that, I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Donna. Anyone else calling?
We have a Jim Moriarty that would like to speak.
Thank you so much. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Jim Moriarty. I live at 11 Cushing Place, Unit 308. I believe this project will be a major improvement for the town of Chelmsford. Tonight you have an opportunity to change an eyesore, a condemned, a fire trap building into one of beauty. The Historic Commission couldn't say enough good things about the long overdue project. Now, I've heard some concerns about traffic. We all know, well, at least the people my age remember what the traffic used to be and what that corner was called. It was called Chicken Corner. Now, at least with traffic lights, it's a much safer place. And let's be real, the traffic is not going to be interfering with a first-class restaurant or 8 units above at different time slots. The traffic is the traffic. I believe this project should have 100% of the board's backing, as well as the taxpayers of Chelmsford. I just think this is a long overdue project, and I really would appreciate your support for this project. Taking an eyesore of a condemned building in the center of town and making it into a first-class building. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Colleen, anyone else?
I don't see anybody else with a hand up.
Okay, I do have a question. With the package, I've seen, Katie, you with the parking, that sheet. I don't seem to have that in my package. Did the other board members get that sheet? Because the one that you put up on the screen with the parking, I don't have.
Right, the one that's incorrect, it's actually correct on the cover sheet of the plan set. So if you look at the first page of the site plan, and I can bring it up for you.
Okay, so we did not get that until now, right?
You did, it's right here. It's just correct, it's correct on the plan, it's not correct in my presentation.
Okay, no, you had a form there that looked like the forms that we received, you know, the waiver list and all that, and it said... That was just a cut and paste for the meeting minutes tonight, but I had a scribbling error when I did it. So this is the parking requirements here.
But that's based on the 50% reduction, so I need to update this to the 20% reduction because the bylaw changed during the process.
Does that have the apartments on it?
So this does, yes. See, it says eight one-bedroom units.
Okay.
So it's all within the cover sheet. And if I may just speak for...
No, it's there, but it's wrong, right? So you gotta make a correction.
So I gotta make it to the 20% reduction, which is now based on if town meeting approves that bylaw, right? It'll be a 20% reduction, correct. So I'll update that. What I want to say just really briefly about parking when we're dealing with a mixed-use project is that when we were here prior, we had an entire project. So we were utilizing the whole lot. We knew what all the users were going to be. We knew essentially, generally what the times were going to be. Let me go to the site plan just so that we can look at the whole site plan together. We knew what all the uses were going to be. We knew essentially what everybody was going to be doing here. We knew the FISC was going to be in office. We know Santander's business hours. We knew FISC House. We knew that there were going to be cross easements, which we are going to have for this project. We knew that there was going to be different time slots for parking. So what you don't want to do with a mixed-use project is take all the parking and add it together and pave the world. You want to create a parking lot that's going to benefit everyone, right? It's going to benefit, when the parking spaces clear out around Fisk and Santander, the restaurant will get the benefit of using those parking spaces. And there's an additional 19, 21, 24 spaces that are just here around Santander and the Fisk House that make up the additional spaces required by the Oddfellows. So you don't want to pave these additional spaces and then have all these spaces be completely empty. The thing is, let me finish my thought. So tonight what we're proposing is 37 spaces with the Oddfellows. We're not proposing anything besides a subdivision for the Fisk and Santander. This board will see anything that comes back before you, and you will have to make the determination as to whether, based on the uses of Fisk House, that there's sufficient parking for the project to work. And we will be required to seek special permits for any additional development that's out here under the Center Village Overlay District. So this is the first bite at the apple, and it's a small one.
Yeah, I get that. It's bad that somebody from the public had to come in and correct the parking. That should have been right the first time. But it is what it is. Okay.
I apologize. I made the presentation today. I've been entirely in bed all day, sick with a head cold. I screwed up. It's on the plan.
Okay. So nobody else from the public calling, so we're all set with that?
Yep, I don't see anybody else. Thank you.
All right, and anyone from the board have any other questions?
Well, should we move to continue the public hearing?
Sounds, Fred?
Chairman, I want to mention that Tim Snee is with us this evening, and you may want to ask him to come back in 2 weeks. But the issue that Mr. Rigney brought up, when there was work being done on the site, testing for what would have been the condominium units, part of the test did come back with some materials that appeared to be a plume from a previous use of Stop and Shop. So we are aware of this. AmeriCal engaged an LSP. This has gone on for a while, so you may want to deal with this at the next meeting, or we could submit something in writing. But Tim Snee is an LSP. He's here. The project will be filing for downgradient status because none of the property here caused the problem, but it still needs to be addressed. So Mike is correct in that it needs to be addressed for the town, the Board of Health, and either tonight or in 2 weeks, Tim can comment on that as a designated LSP.
Since it's getting a little bit late, would it be all right, since we're going to be extending it out anyways? We'll hear from him then if you want to present anything in the meantime. Does that sound good with everybody from the board?
Mr. Chairman, one other thing I'd like to say is that, again, we all learn things at this meeting, and we hear that parking still is a concern, and I think we can do not only just some corrections, but some additional homework having to do with sidewalks. It is a challenge because we don't, as Katie said, we don't know what the other uses are. I would say when we give spaces to Odd Fellows, we do reduce other potential uses or have to ask for greater waivers. So it's not like we're going to come forward for each portion of this project and keep coming in for greater and greater waivers. But I think we could do a better job at addressing the issue comprehensively, and we will do that in 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you. Mike Raceback?
Yep.
You want to make a motion?
Yeah, move that we continue the public hearing to our next meeting, or what's the date on that? The 3rd, the 10th? The 9th, okay.
The 9th, okay, you guys second on that?
I'll give you a second.
Second by Paul McDougal, all in favor?
Aye.
Mike Walsh?
Aye.
No, Mike Raceback?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Nancy? Erica?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Okay, there we go. Thank you very much. See you at the next meeting.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, members of the board. We appreciate your time.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Next up, 200 Turnpike. 200 Turnpike Road, All-Star Management LLC requests a special permit per section 195-5, use regulations and attachment 1, use table, to operate a 2,800 square foot doggy daycare, commercial kennel. A special permit per section 195-18 to reduce parking, and section 195-144C to reduce buffer strips, and any other zoning relief that is deemed necessary. The site is located in the IA Limited Industrial District and consists of approximately 3.85 acres as shown in the assessor's map 106-328-5 and 6. As we already said, Mike read, I know there's a lot of people that were interested in this, and we're going to try to give everybody a chance to speak. But I've also asked the speakers to be respectful and concise, and so that we can get everybody in. We're limited to 3 minutes. Do not engage the applicant. Speak to the chair, and make sure you state your name and address. So we will start with the applicant.
Good morning, or good morning, it feels like morning. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For the record, my name is Philip Iliopoulos, with law offices at 9 North Road in Chelmsford. I'm the attorney for the applicant, joined here tonight by Katie Enright. We also hopefully still have on the call Jeffrey Comrower, who's a noise mitigation consultant. And I've included his report in your packet, and we can bring him in if the board has any technical questions. But I just want to kind of just quickly sort of step back. If you remember at the prior meeting, we committed to not seek a vote that night, but to come back to this board with some sound mitigation proposals, because the biggest concern of the abutters seemed to be noise. Again, we want to also reiterate from our perspective, we don't think noise will be an issue. And the main reason is because we've committed to only allowing at any one time 10 dogs in the outside pen. And those dogs would always be supervised by an employee. So if you've got a dog that's acting up and barking, and we can't stop the dog from barking for whatever reason, that dog's going to come back inside. But we can say that 100 times and we believe it and we know it to be true, but that still didn't address the concerns of the abutters. We had met with the abutters in early May, early this month, to do a site visit. And I know the abutters felt that maybe that meeting wasn't productive. But at that meeting, we heard their concerns, and those concerns are what led us to try and see if we could get an expert to assist us in incorporating some sound mitigation for the project, in hopes that it would at least give some sense that we're trying to be good neighbors. I had been working with attorney Doug Duchesne, who was representing the condo association. And it was him and I that agreed not to seek a vote at the last meeting, but to give time to incorporate these efforts into our plan. Just in terms of full disclosure, I don't believe that Doug Duchesne is representing the condo association anymore. I did get an email yesterday morning from Doug Hausler, who's an attorney in Chelmsford, that he would be representing the association. He asked for a continuance, but I just felt it wasn't warranted. I just don't think that there's much more we can do to satisfy the abutters, and I'm not quite sure if another 2 weeks is going to change that. So I talked to my client, and we decided that we would go forward tonight. So I just wanted to disclose that to the board, and in all being upfront. So to that, what we've done is we've put together an updated plan that Katie can quickly walk through in a minute. And the plan itself comes mainly from the advice of Jeff Conrower, again, who's an acoustic consultant. I actually found him. I've never had to hire an acoustic consultant. I found one, really through the web, and we interacted with him. He seemed like a very qualified candidate, and we brought him into the project. And primarily, what he's recommended, part of which we had already included in our plan, was to ensure that the outside pen is AstroTurf. So that would be the bottom of the pen, which obviously we have planned to do anyway, so that the dogs could be on that type of surface. He also recommended installing noise-absorbing material on the inside of the concrete wall. If you remember where the pen's located, there's a natural concrete barrier along the street and along the abutter. So he recommended to put some type of material to prevent sound from maybe bouncing off that concrete. We have within the pen, there's going to be a chain link fence. And so there'd be a chain link fence that would govern where the dogs would be able to go outside. That's separate from the concrete wall. He recommended that within that chain link fence, we put some type of privacy panels for two reasons. One, so that the dogs aren't distracted by outside, a squirrel running down the parking lot or something along those lines. But also, he felt that would add some noise mitigation as well. He also looked at our landscaping plan, and as Thais had committed to, he recommended removing the pine trees that are on her property along Turnpike Road. He just felt that given their size and the sort of emptiness towards the bottom of the trees, that they wouldn't provide any sound deadening material. And he recommended in their place to plant some arborvitaes. We also shared with him our desire and plan to build a additional fence above the concrete wall. So that would be an additional barrier 6 or 8 feet above the concrete wall. We also relayed to him our limits on how many dogs we would allow outside at any one time. With all of that, he did a sound analysis and determined that even if there are dogs barking in the pen, that the sound mitigation efforts that we've committed to the plan will not create an impact for the abutters. So that's sort of his finding. It's a very technical report. It's a little bit above my head pay grade, but he's here to answer any technical questions you may have. The other thing we've agreed to do, and this was Nancy's recommendation, we've agreed to limit the total number of dogs in the facility to 40 dogs at this time. So, I know that we've been working with the Chelmsford dog enforcement officer, and given the size of the site, I think given the layout, we could have more dogs there. But we decided, let's just go with 40 if everything goes well and the business grows and we want to come back for another 10 or 20 dogs. We can always come back to the board at that time if we're being good neighbors. So, I think that's something that hopefully would give some comfort to the board and to the abutters. So any vote tonight, you can restrict that to no more than 40 dogs total at the business at any one time, okay? I also pointed out to the board in my memo, and I'm sure the either the dog enforcement officer is here, or I don't know if town council's here, but the town has very strong bylaws as it relates to nuisance, as it relates to sound, and certainly if for whatever reason we're not being good neighbors, the town has enforcement actions that they can take with us, as well as not renewing the license each year. So that's something else that the town has within its disposal. With regards to traffic, and there was a concern raised at the last meeting as it relates to traffic. With now 40 dogs as our agreed upon limit, you're looking at a maximum of 80 trips a day for that business. 40 coming in to drop off their dogs in the mornings, maybe, and 40 coming out when they pick up their dogs in the afternoon. That site would have a business in it if this proposal doesn't go forward. So any business that's in that square footage is going to have its own parking and cars and traffic coming in and out. So we think it's a wash, but I had Katie Enright do some checking for traffic counts, and she's found that there are currently 3,372 daily trips on average on Turnpike Road. So maybe this proposal is in lieu of some other type of industrial use would generate 20, 30, 40 more cars, if that, per day, based on over almost 3,400 daily traffic users of that road each day. I don't think traffic is going to be a significant change at all. I think it's going to be negligible and maybe no different than if a normal business was in there. Katie, do you mind, while we have the plan up, maybe do just a quick walkthrough of it, if you're able to?
Sure, yeah, sure, of course. Katie Enright with Howard Stein Hudson. As Phil just stated, the number that he just stated was from the traffic study that was done prior to the Kinlock at 104 Turnpike Road prior to COVID. So those were just some numbers that were collected back then, which is the last time we collected figures on Turnpike. Changes consist of adding the 6-foot vinyl fence along the length of the wall. And as you see, there's azaleas now planted in front of the vinyl fence, which was a suggestion of the sound consultant. And also, as Phil stated, there's some trees that were marked to be removed, placed with arborvitae, and also pear and cherry trees planted along the frontage here. And those are the only changes to our plan at this time.
Thank you. All right, so the other, if you want to maybe go forward one slide, Katie. So a couple of other things. Concern raised about the applicant's experience. An allegation raised about some complaints about her house in Westford. So I've included in your packet a letter from the animal control officer in Westford that basically, I think, dispels that concern. In fact, she applied for and was approved recently for a kennel license in Westford. Animal control officer in Westford who investigated the allegation found that there was no evidence of any violation on her behalf. So she's been a good citizen of Westford. She's in good Animal Control Department of Westford, and in fact, they just recently approved her this month for a kennel license in Westford. The other thing is that we talked about her experience and what she's done is she's been working with a company and a couple of operators of doggy daycare type facilities. The name of their company is Woof Daycare and Boarding. And they've also included a letter comfort level with her passion, experience, and a willingness to operate the business appropriately and in a manner that will be respectful of her abutters. So I wanted to include that for the board's consideration. And I also included a letter from the vet that manages her home kennel and the dogs there that just has also signed off as support for her and for the project. So, I think really as it relates to noise, I'm happy to have, if the board has any particular questions from Jeffrey Kamroa, but I think with the limitation on the total number of dogs, the limitation on the number of dogs that'll be outside at any time, the sound mitigation efforts that he's determined will create no impact on the community. I think that is a good step in hopefully making sure that this is a positive project. I also remind the board that several of the members, including myself, have taken it upon themselves to visit other doggy daycares in Chelmsford, and I did it again this past week, a couple of days ago, and you just don't hear the constant barking that I know the neighbors are concerned about. So while I'm not here to try to convince them that their concerns aren't valid or to change those concerns, we're very confident that we will not have barking dogs, and that with these mitigation efforts, if there is a dog barking, it's not going to impact the neighbors to the degree that they have raised. So I know it's late. I thought maybe I would turn it on to questions of the board, and if the board had any specific questions of our consultant, hopefully he's still on the meeting.
I'm here.
Okay.
And so we can, the consultant, we can get questions on. Anyone from the board have any questions? I'll start off with Nancy.
Actually, the only question I had is probably for Katie. That is what kind of values are you planning there? Because some could be good and some could be bad.
So I'll have to ask the owner about that, the specific azalea in mind. So,
I'm sorry, Katie, you're breaking up. Can you try again, Katie?
Did we lose everybody? Anyone else on?
I'm here.
Okay. It looks like we lost.
It looks like it looks like there are a lot of people who got dumped off the call.
Yeah. We went from 40 to 8. let's hang tight.
Hmm.
We lost everybody. We have a motion to adjourn? No, I'm only joking.
Maybe we should. Maybe we should do a motion to continue.
Yeah, you gotta wait. I don't know. We gotta wait, see if they come back on. We lost, Chelmsford.
I second that motion. Motion.
No. Don't get us.
I'm speaking in relation.
I think we lost the TV guys as well.
I think it was glitching pretty bad.
Yeah, I had Katie totally breaking up and then it just kind of went off.
There's a storm.
Yeah, we're here.
I think the storm is affecting some of the people.
Yeah. Yeah, Tim, we went from 35 people or something down to 7. Right.
I was talking, all of a sudden I'm like, oh boy, where is it?
They didn't like what you said.
Yeah.
They'll be back. Well, it looks like we're on TV on the top left. So
Are we still televised?
It was just your face, Mike.
No, oh, great.
I'm having bandwidth issues now too.
Yeah, we're still live on TV, so.
Some people are trying to log back in. Hi, this is Thais. Is there a limitation to the time of the Zoom meeting? Because Jeff says he can't log, it's not letting him log in.
I'm back. Something kicked me out. Did the whole meeting go down, or was it just me? Okay.
And then we'll give everybody a chance to speak, so we won't make any decisions without making sure everyone's had a chance.
Katie says that her town has bus internet.
Okay. Well, I don't know.
Continue.
We can, make a motion to continue. Paul, is there anything else that we need from you on this? Do you think that the board could talk with you to make sure that so that you're all set, or do we still will we need you for the next one as well?
I'm not sure, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, all right. I was just trying to think out of the box there, but we'll see.
Tim, it looks like we got 20 people back on so far. So what if we give them a few more minutes and see if we can get the majority of the people back?
I'm fine with I think Katie is having an issue with internet. Let's see what happens. We'll wait a little bit.
Colleen said she lost internet.
Okay.
I'm back, Mr. Chairman, too. I'm sorry. I guess we all got bounced out.
All right. It looks like we're all back.
Yeah, there's 19 back right now.
Don't see Colleen.
There was 32 or 35 before we went.
We have all the board members back.
Colleen without power, no internet.
Where's Mike? Oh, Mike's there. Good, Evan.
Katie's back.
Okay, so where were we?
I was asking Katie about the azaleas.
Right, I don't have any more information on what type of azaleas, so I can reach out to the owner and ask her for specifics.
Yeah, would you please, because some types of azaleas are going to stay real low, some are going to get really tall and just go wild there. it's going to make a difference in terms of manageability of the landscaping.
Let me just ask, Thais, are you on this call?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Could you answer the question about what type of azaleas you're planning on planting there, if you know the specific type or breed?
I don't know the breed, but I know that when we spoke to the nursery, the landscaper is going to be taking care of it and maintaining it. We don't want it to cover the whole fence, but it'll be very nicely done and not overgrown. We're actually pruning back one of my trees as well so that it's not going to dwarf the, get in the way of the sunlight for the azaleas.
And then the arborvitae will be along the street, correct?
Yes, it will be along the fence, directly, I believe, across from 199's trees, the cherry or pear tree they have.
All right, so the arborvitae will be along the street, that part of your property along the street.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so my request is to go check on what types of azaleas and add them to the plan.
Nancy, if you have any recommendations that you would like to give us on a different plant, I'm open to that.
No, the azaleas are actually, azaleas could be a very good plant there. It's just that some of them get to be 3 feet high and some of them get to be 12 feet high. And you need to decide on, which ones you're going to select that are going to stay manageable.
I believe the ones we picked are going to grow no more than 3 to 4 feet high.
And maybe there's some confusion. The azaleas that we're talking about are more going to be in front of the fence by the parking lot, in front of the solid fence we're going to build atop the concrete wall, correct?
Yeah, they're showing on the plan there, Phil.
Right.
I'm just asking that you go check with the landscaper and find out what type they're planning to use and add it to the plan.
Yeah, those are more, I think, more aesthetic because they'll be in front of the fence by the parking lot for more aesthetic purposes. It's really I think the arborvitaes that will provide more of an added sound barrier along the street.
The arborvitaes will provide your sound barrier. The azaleas could be a detriment to your parking spaces if you put the wrong ones in.
Yeah, so we'll make sure they're manageable. But I think if those will be
just
probably
find out what they are and add them to the plan.
okay.
Mr. Sherman?
Yes.
So I am getting emails from some of the abutters who have been involved in the public hearing who have said they are not able to reconnect. So there may be parts of town that are without power or without internet.
Yeah, I was worried about that. Okay. I don't know. I don't know how you all feel about.
If the proponents can handle it, we can continue. I don't see any reason to cut anybody out.
Phil, how would you feel about that? I know that we've been dragging this. I had a feeling that people aren't going to get back in and this is going to be an issue, that they didn't get to speak.
Yeah. No, listen, it is what it is. I know we were hoping to move it forward because it's been a long process for all of us, but could we at least do that? So, Thais, because of the fact that even my internet's down, the board is concerned about going forward when you can't have public input if people can't log back in. So because of the storm and technology, looks like we're going to have to not get a vote unless something changes. Could we at least hear if there are any other questions of the board so we can maybe at least get that piece to, or would that be inappropriate?
Mike Walsh, you have something you just wanted to say?
I was going to ask a question. If we can, some of the neighbors in their letters were upset that it delayed to 14 days because of the last meeting. If we have to do this, can we have a special planning board meeting a week from tonight to discuss this so it doesn't last so long? If that's just a suggestion. I think it is a little bit. I think it is a little bit inappropriate to. That's a question for Paul if we need to ask the questions. But I think half the group that's really interested in this is not going to hear any of the comments that the planning board has, and that's just my 2 cents. I'm not an attorney, so.
I agree with you. It'd be great if we could. I'd be willing to do a special meeting if it's possible.
Yeah, so the only thing, unfortunately, I'm going away with my family out of state next week, so I won't be around Wednesday night. And if I log in from my vacation, I'll probably be going home alone. Yeah.
Well, maybe I'll be coming back.
Yes, I won't be coming back. So I do
Well, you
appreciate.
took everybody with you. I mean, that could go too.
I appreciate the offer.
Are we all right doing that 2 weeks out?
This is an act of God, they happen.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, you certainly can continue the meeting for 2 weeks.
Okay, so.
With regard to open meeting law, you shouldn't hear any more testimony if there are people that were on that got knocked out.
Okay, Attorney Hausler, you seem like you're okay with that too?
If you have to, I don't think there's any choice.
Okay, so that sounds great, then we will.
We have to move to.
That's what we're doing. We're gonna do that. Go ahead, Mike.
I move that we continue the public hearing on this matter to our next regular meeting on the 9th. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Mike. Can I have a second, please?
Can I raise a point of order?
Yeah, who's that?
Council.
Attorney Hausler. Go ahead.
Just a point of order, is it possible that this matter could be listed as number 1 on that agenda, please?
I would be fine with that.
Sure.
That sounds good to me.
Thank you, sorry.
Okay, no problem. We'll go ahead with the second now, and that was Nancy, I believe?
It was me.
So
Deirdre.
Deirdre, thank you very much. Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. We will extend the meeting for 2 weeks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Haverty. All right.
Mr. Chairman, now you need to, reserve hearing for the night.
Yep. Would you like another motion?
Yes, sir.
I move that we end the meeting tonight, that we
adjourn.
Second.
Second by Deidre. All in favor?
Aye.
All ayes.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Thank you, sir. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Good night, all.
Night.
Comes out this piece of pizza that he's been eyeing over there.